Hey, this is Angelo John Lewis for the Sacred Inclusion Network. If you want to know more about us, please check out our website, sacredinclusion.com. And I'm here with Janne Robinson, my esteemed guest, who will be leading us in a workshop that we'll talk about in a little bit. And since we're going to be talking a little bit about poetry and writing, Janne, I'm hoping I pronounced it correctly. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
I wish you would do the grace of just starting us off with a poem of yours.
Yeah, I would love to. I just wrote this. My writing is messy, so I hope I can read it back to myself. Sometimes when you write fast, sometimes on paper. Um, I wrote this, I think last week. It doesn't have a title. It is nowhere on the internet, so just pay attention.
She came back from a whale thing, which
Yes,
the
yeah, we should
poem will
front load
reference.
that. I was just swimming with humpback whales, and so as I've been integrating that, I've been writing because that's what we do as poets. And this is one of the things, I wrote two poems. This is one of the things that came out of it. Do you know what it feels like to own a heart that feels responsible for the whole world? A love that at its core believes that every person and animal is deserving of everything: care, consideration, respect, opportunity, safety, enough food to eat. I care about a 3-year-old falling asleep 200,000 miles away who did not get enough to eat today, and I care about the orange and white street dog falling asleep hungry in Zimbabwe. I care about the orcas, the 72 southern residents that travel between northern Canada and California, quietly going extinct. My heart is inclusive to everything, and I never chose that, and it's a big net to have because our world isn't inclusive or fair. It's unjust, and we still haven't learned how, as humans, to harness our power, like the 60,000-pound mother humpback who 2 feet away from me slowly and gently swims by. Such enormous creatures with power and might, choosing to be gentle. Could our leaders choose to be a little more gentle? We don't need more grandmother trees cut down for timber. We need to get on our knees and ask them for the secrets that we need before we are all gone. I'm not impressed that you have an AI girlfriend or that we've landed on the moon. I'll be impressed when we as humans finally remember that leadership is to take care of our people, take care of this earth and all her inhabitants. I'll be impressed when we choose the kookaberries over drilling for oil, and when we finally understand that water is wealth and that there is no I in we.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. It's so beautiful.
Thanks for hearing it. It's the first draft, and you're the only person who's heard it.
Well, it's going to be blasted out over the internet, so it'll be amplified. Um, I want to just take a moment to try to introduce this remarkable woman that is across from me on Zoom. And in full disclosure, after several iterations of writing her bio, I got great help. Writers hate this kind of shit from AI. And AI did a wonderful job, saved me a lot of time. And I'll say just easily, it's not very easy to capture this woman in a couple of paragraphs. And so I'll just give us one paragraph, and we'll go from there, and we'll
Okay.
talk about what we're here to talk about. And I'm going to read it. Janne Robinson is a poet, author, speaker, and culture creator. I like that. Who believes that our world is starved for authenticity and that truth is our greatest medicine. Born in the wilds of Whitehorse, Yukon, I live close to Whitehorse, New Jersey, so I had to make a little mental adjustment. And now splits her time between the woods and the ocean. Jana's work is a testament to the power of raw, unfiltered honesty. She's an author of the acclaimed poetry collection. I just can't imagine how the corporate people hear this title. The title is This is for Women Who Don't Give a Fuck. And her poems and articles have been read millions of times worldwide, blah, 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 blah. John is going to be doing something on the sacred inclusion work, which I'll tell you about at the end of this, and it'll be in the show notes. But I want to get down to it, Jonna. You call yourself, I'm reading, you've been, and AI helped me with this too. You call yourself a shame exorcist and cool aunt of corporate. If we strip away the branding, who were you before the language and the titles? What was the earliest version of you that knew that truth mattered more than performance?
Um, am I allowed to say like a childhood memory? Because that's just what
Say
showed up.
anything you like,
How
you know?
how young can I be?
We're going to make this scripted but unscripted at the same time.
Yeah, so I think I also didn't read any of the questions you sent me because I like to not know what's coming down the chute. And I also think we have to use AI because we're being asked to output so much more than we ever have. And it can be a helpful tool sometimes. So on that note as well, it's all
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, it's really, we're holding way more than we ever have. So,
Yeah.
um, my first memory of speaking my truth or being real was an experience there's two experiences, but one of them was when I was in, I think, grade 7. So that's in Canada. I'm unsure. I think the age might be before junior high, so not high school. So like probably 12, we'll call it, or 13. And I had a teacher who only in his class, so it wasn't the school rule, it was just his rule. Girls were not allowed to wear like little jackets. And I grew up in Sherwood Park, Alberta, which is minus 30 degrees Celsius winter. It was cold. I'm like still 120 pounds. So just think of me when I was 13. And he was creepy. The truth was, we felt creeped out by him, and we felt like his rule was about looking at our bodies. And his nickname was Mr. Touchingstons because we found him creepy. There was never really any, to my knowledge, like sexual abuse pieces, which I will name, but he just had that weird feeling that wasn't so safe. And I had this, I want you to imagine me in grade 7 with like slicked back gel bun, little like princess little clips in my hair, and back when that like gold lipstick was kind of cool, and I had this Adidas shell on, and it was just like a little shell for warmth. And I remember he got to me and he said, Yana, take your coat off. And I just said, no. And then everybody turned around and was like, and he was like, excuse me? And I was like, it's a stupid rule. And I got sent to detention. And then my mom got called in, and we all went to the principal's office. And my mom sat down and said, it's a stupid rule. And I also had a memory. There was a girl when I was a year younger than that who her boobs came in really big, and she was getting a lot of attention, and she was letting boys like spray water on her chest. And there was just kind of, when you're in that young age and it's exciting to get attention from men, but there were older and older boys from high school coming. And she was one of my best friends, and I felt really scared because intuitively there was a part of me that knew there was a bit of risk. And so I shared it with my mom, and she asked if she could bring it to this girl from my school's mom. And I said yes. And I lost all of my friends because I was the kid that outed whatever was going on. But to quote my book, if it's something that I believe in, I'm going to follow it. And I don't really give a fuck what the loss is. And I've always felt that of, doing what's right internally for me, and taking care of people, even when it might not feel like it's truly taking care of somebody in that instance. I have had these like ginormous metal-sized balls, probably from partially my mom, who is a hardcore feminist, women's rights activist, like airplane mechanic for WestJet with Rosie Riveter stickers, mentoring young helicopter pilots. And, she's like part shaman, probably definitely a lot from my mom. I learned some of that just because the mainstream or everybody else says that something is true or good doesn't mean that it actually is. And yeah, I would say that partially comes from the shaping of my mom, and my mom thinks that some of my courage does not belong to her at all. So I'll take some credit. So that's my earliest memory of being real. And then when I moved into my career as a writer, I was writing for different online publications, Elephant Journal and Thought Catalog. In the beginning, I just wanted to be neutral. I wanted to, in an article, show people that I understood every opinion. And the editors, I remember one editor said to me, just say what you believe, just say your opinion. And the first real thing that I wrote was an article about my emotional process in choosing to have an abortion in 2014. And I wasn't planning to write about it. After I had had the abortion, I was laying in bed and it just kind of flowed out of me. And none of my work is performative vulnerability. I think in our world today, sometimes it is performative, but for any of you that were here in 2014, which is 12 years ago, there weren't many people being vulnerable on the internet. So if you could remember that time, it was different. And I often say I was one of the first people to be vulnerable on the internet because I genuinely feel it's true. And anyways, I wrote this article, and Angelo, I sat with it for about 4 months or 5 months because I wanted to be really clear and intentional around why I would share something so vulnerable and so real, and the article contained the truth that my boyfriend at the time didn't show up for the appointment or support me, and I didn't want to share it to shame him or make him look bad. It also talked about a doctor who I went to for medical advice who told me that I shouldn't get an abortion and that I'd regret my choice, and how I looked at him and said, "How dare you?" And if I was a 14-year-old girl who didn't have a spine, those words could have really affected me, like, do your fucking job. And all of these different pieces, and it included a conversation I did with a shamanic coach that I was working with at the time, who there's a lot of discrepancy around when the soul enters the body. And so I sat in front of my little wood stove. I was living in a cabin in BC, and it was January. It was winter. It rained for like 30 days straight. And I remember sitting in front of my wood stove saying, "Hey, little soul, I don't know if you're in there. And if you are, and you've arrived and you've chosen me, like, thank you so much for the choice of wanting to do this with me. And like, I am not ready for this. So if you want to go find a different mother, a different body to inhabitat, like, I would understand that. And if you want to wait till I'm ready, I would love to do life with you, but it's not now." And very vulnerable, very visceral, very step by step, every part of my process, every family member who is neutral, every person that was not neutral and clouded me hearing my own voice and my choice. And I decided to share it because there was so much shame, and abortion is something that happens all the time and we don't talk about it. And I wanted women to have something to read so that they felt less alone. And my name, I've been told by one woman once, means she was like, your name in my language means you are not alone. And so I really, Angelo, feel that a huge part of my purpose is to very courageously, very openly, and it is not without cost. There's a lot of cost to sharing your story as your life's work. And I think being an internet influencer and a nonfiction writer and a poet are two different things, and we forget that sometimes as well. But choosing to teach through your story rather than create the five love languages, it's a deeply intimate thing, and it's been a commitment that I have had for my whole life, and it's like improv comedy. It's very vulnerable. You never know what's going to happen, and it does take a lot of courage. And so I forget exactly what the question was, but I have been
Yeah,
real for my whole life.
it's a good place to transition because I mean, this is in my prepared notes or whatever, but you're going to be leading us in a writing workshop, which is a sort of a spontaneous writing workshop. We'll talk about that, but there's something that you were just sharing which strikes me that it's especially important for women to be able to do this. You talked about abortion, but it's much bigger than that in my mind. So I wonder if you could, if you agree with that, and if you could maybe speak to that a little bit.
When you say do this, like the poetry part
In
of
other
it, or
words, like I'm a writer. Once a month, somebody. Well, this is not so much these days. People would say, "I want to write a book." I say, "Okay, whatever." I mean, I've been writing since I was 5 years old, so I'm kind of sick of it. I don't even want to hear it. Um, Seriously. But in any event, and also, this is another thing which maybe doesn't need to be said. A lot of people, they don't even write anymore. What they do is that they just like send emails out and things like that. There's something about writing which is transformative, in my
yes,
opinion.
yes,
And at the same thing, it seems to me that women in this society, it's like they don't have permission or haven't given themselves permission to really share what's going on. So that's what strikes me as essential, especially impactful and important about your work. That's kind of where I was going.
totally. And what you're naming, I just this week created it's like transformation through poetry. It's a workshop for an organization that works with incarcerated people who are integrating into society, where we write and personify, so make a survival pattern that they have into a poem, so make it a character. And then the second exercise is that we personify their wholeness, because everybody has wholeness as well as survival patterns. And if we identify with our survival patterns, it's really hard to heal. And it really is like a therapy, poetry. And I actually love bringing poetry into both corporate or any type of environment, because people think it's creative. And I'm like, you're
Mhm.
going to cry. People cry pretty much all the time. People cry. They write about their miscarriages. They write about the moments in their life that brought them to their knees. Poetry is cathartic and therapeutic. And I agree with you that it's permission, and that I think one of the nicest things any interviewer or person has said to me, there was a woman, and I can see her face but not her name, who had me on her podcast years ago, and she said, I didn't realize being a woman was on the menu like that until I heard you use your voice.
Wow.
So that permission piece of like, yeah, you can put the word fuck and vagina on your books and still get hired to go into companies, apparently.
Not apparently, really, really.
So yeah. Hmm. And thanks for seeing that and understanding and hearing that back.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this. You grew up in Yukon or whatever. I don't even know what that is. I'm a city boy, so I don't really know what that is. But and then you just did this whale thing. So what is it about nature? What is it about nature and the wild that influences who you are? And not only that, but why is it important for people to embrace that aspect of our humanness?
Yeah.
It's in us, no matter we grew up and lived in New York City for all of our lives.
Well, you just pointed out something to me that I hadn't even seen, which is that I really do seek wildness. So thanks for giving me a little breakthrough in that. And yeah, I mean, we used to live in nature, not visit it. And we used to live in wild spaces. We used to there wasn't airplanes, and there's a comedian who says, you know, you used to have to walk from location to location, and people would die and have babies, and you'd be a whole other group of people. So I seek wildness and environment of openness. And the Yukon is in northern Canada. For people in the States listening, think Alaska. Actually, you can, I think that is the state and the province. There's Northwest Territories. I've actually been to Tuktoyaktuk, which is the northernmost point in Canada, because my mom's partner did a 24,000-kilometer journey across Canada, and my mom paddled from Peace River, Alberta to Tuktoyaktuk for 4,000 kilometers. I don't know what that is in miles. Sorry, y'all, but you're the ones who made miles, so you get to do the math.
Right. About half.
There you go. And so she's wild. I think I get some of my wildness from my mom. But yeah, I was born in a tiny cabin in Whitehorse in the Yukon, and my mom was living, she was 23, living in this little cabin, and she was reading books by her wood stove, and she would tell people not to drop by unless she invited them, because she was in a reflective, introspective part of her life. And we had two big bush dogs, Jed and Jesse. So I was absolutely bear bait for the first. I have photos of myself in like little wool sweaters out in the bush. And I had a very, and then we did move to civilization. We moved to Vancouver and Nelson, British Columbia, and I also spent some time in Sherwood Park when my mom fell in love with her partner, not currently, but Jackie, my other mom. My mom's gay. So yeah, I had a very, I think the connection of our environments, you know, this is a whole other, we could have a second podcast about this if you want, but I found my birth father for the first time when I was 21, and
Yeah,
he lives in Crete,
yeah.
Greece. And I remember when I landed in Greece, even though I'd never been there, a part of me was like, yeah, this is my fatherland. This is my home, and it's my I thrive cellularly because I'm half Greek the second I land there. So if you plot me in a wild space, and for any of you that have been to Alaska or up north in Canada, I mean silence. You get out in the middle of nowhere and there's no sounds, no people. You're just alone with yourself. I mean, it's beautiful, and it's raw, and it's confronting, and yeah, and I love it. And I live in Cardiff by the Sea, California, and there's neighbors stacked on neighbors. So sometimes I have to go seek that wildness in the world. But yeah, I had a really, really unique childhood, really unique origin story. My parents met in an Osho ashram in India and had this
Uh,
love
uh,
story.
Also known as Rajneesh by people that don't know the word
Yeah,
Osho.
he's a bit of an odd cat. I can't say I like
Yeah.
love him. But yeah, so that would be there. And then I mean, we could spend a lot of time talking about the origin story, but had a unique childhood. My dad is a very spiritual, unique person who lives in a village of 60 people in southern Crete with no electricity, outside of the modernization of the world, growing his food, getting his water from the mountains. So I have some pretty unique parents, and spiritual parents in different ways. And yeah, and I'm so grateful for what I've received from both of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they've given you a gift to share, with us, cityfied people.
Yes, but it's also scary out there. There's bears and cougars and
Yeah.
scary.
Shit, you talking about that? I'm worried about mosquitoes, right?
Leeches.
Let's talk about writing a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of people, because we're going to be doing what I'll call spontaneous writing. So, a lot of people, they're just frightened to do that. It's like, the idea of just like talking, the people are just self-conscious about themselves and sharing it with others. What do you have to say to such a person? I mean, why would you encourage a person like that to maybe come out of their shell and share?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is whether you have the courage to put it on a piece of paper outside of you or not, it's all inside of you. It's
Yeah.
all swirling around. You're thinking about it. It's in your subconscious. So, like, it's in there. Good luck. And, I think there's research on this, like taking things out of our subconscious and psyche and putting them onto paper or processing them in therapy. I mean, that's kind of how we heal. And the great news about a poetry workshop is you don't have to share it with anyone. So when I work with artists and writers, and this actually is one of the things in my career that I've named that does not belong to anyone, and I'm very proud of because sometimes we regurgitate things. But one of the concepts I believe when I work with people around writing poetry is um, you have to write like you're on the moon and no one will ever read it. And
Uh,
that's it. Because if you write thinking about people reading it, it won't be as honest as it could be.
mm,
And it's in that truly courageous space. Like there's nothing more confronting than a blank page of paper. You might think that there is, but you know, it's something that is really beautiful to be able to just take your insides outside. And um, I think we're going to maybe give people an opportunity to share, but they don't have to share. And a lot of times when I do this in companies, sometimes people will share and sometimes they're like, oh no, I went for it. I'm not sharing that with shit. So um, I think it's part of how we heal. And one of my partnerships right now is with a self-help journal app. And a lot of their work is around mental health and journaling. And I've been doing The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron
yeah.
and that's really helping my mental health. So, like, shit, it feels true. Three
Yeah.
pages of the morning pages are about doing a 3-page brain dump, not writing, like, I mean, true, like, here's my anxiety on paper, here's my stress, here's my, oh my God, like, it's not profound, but it's getting it out. So I would say to people, you got to get it out.
Yeah, it's part of my practice. I don't do this every day, but often I will start a day by just like 10 minutes of just like brain dumping. This, and then if I'm in the wild, which I'm not in the wild often, I will burn it. If I'm not in the wild, I'll just tear it up. But it's just like it's something that's useful, and obviously, I don't share it, but it's just part of my like, mental health process, I'll call it.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So, what else I want to ask you? Okay, so there's journaling, right? People journal. That's a well-known thing, how that's useful, but I guess to some extent we're implying that that may be limiting in terms of what you can do with your creativity.
I think of journaling as like therapy and just like what. I think of poetry as as a creative. It's an expressive act and it can be therapeutic for sure, but it has more form and more intention than journaling. So especially because I'll be giving prompts and guiding people. You're not like out floating in sea, just putting words onto paper. There's going to be an intention plopped in. And I also always start a poetry workshop going first and reading a poem to really get people into that dropped in space of like, oh, okay. And it really does help to segue and kind of set the stage of now it's your turn. And, you have some pieces, but I like how Julia Cameron also talks about like filling our well and that poetry is actually a sensory visual act. Like I think what's really fun about also writing poems is I find, this is my opinion, I won't say this is true for everything. I really love poems that really you can feel because of both the quality of the writing and the taste of the writing, but also the descriptions and it being almost like a somatic um, experience when you're doing it. So I think there's a big difference between poetry and journaling. They're both cathartic, I think, to write at all, to communicate at all in any way, even with our voices or to saying any of those things, I think is cathartic. But yeah, poetry it's also just fun. Like, how many of us just never fucking do anything different, you know? Like, if you've never written a poem, oh my God, just do it, and there's no doing it wrong or right. The reason I do poetry is it's a badass. There's actually no rules to poetry. I think it's why I gravitate towards it. I've been trying to work on a book proposal for a self-help book for 5 years, and there's so many rules. Say that a poem is like a one night stand and like a book is like a marriage, Writing a poem is just a brain dump, but a brain dump with intention. And you can repeat lines to make a point in it. You can write one really long sentence. Kerouac almost wrote what felt like poetry with his
Yeah.
prose that was like so long. So, and I like the beat poets. I don't like
Yeah.
abstract. I was never interested in Shakespeare or anyone. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy saying? Like, I like very clear, like, I like Mary Oliver too, but I like more like, I think poetry should be honest.
That's my era. That when the Beats came out, that was like those are people that spoke to me, still do actually.
Same.
Yeah, so yeah, do Jonna, I've got all these kind of questions, and I just really just want to hear you talk, basically.
I can totally do that. I mean, I'd love to share more about, I'm just on one with the whales right now. So I've just, I
Well,
mean,
here's a question. So,
yeah.
a lot of times when we go to workshops of any sort, it's just like we don't care. It's just a self-contained thing. We go back to life, right? And then maybe we forget it. We have like a kind of a memory of it. So people will come to our event, which I kind of renamed without your permission, but you're okay with it. Full disclosure. What did I call it? Sacred Rawness. Writing for my life and myself, something like that. It'll be in the show notes. So, in other words, like, what is your ideal of how somebody can take this forward into their life? You know, uh, Let me back up a little bit, just a minute, because I was thinking about something that you were talking, and sometimes people tell me, I'm not creative. I'm not creative. I think everybody's creative. I think it's like a box that society or whatever puts ourselves in, and we don't think of ourselves as self-expression. We have a kind of many people go through kind of a ritualized kind of life. So if nothing else, participating in a small 1 hour thing like this, hopefully it can help us break through that for a moment. But anyway, what is your ideal of what how they might take what you're gonna share with them out into their life? I know that's a big question.
No, 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 that's great. I'm tracking all of it. So I think that everybody is creative, and whether our creativity was encouraged or, and sometimes as kids, our creativity is encouraged deeply, and other times it's not. And I do purpose work with people. One of the things I say is, what's your earliest memory of your gifts and your creativity? And was it watered by those people around you? And it makes a really big difference in our ability to believe in ourselves, to believe in our gifts, to believe in our creativity. And the people that I see thriving in art, like artists, careers as artists, have often been believed in from such a young age that they're like, I can touch the sky,
Right.
and I think so. Really good reflection point. If you don't think you're creative, go back to like the earliest memories you have. Building forts are creative, so many of us had expressions of creativity. I think we just think about creativity as poetry or painting, or, but it's creative to build a business. It's creative to do many things. So I would say go look back at your earliest memories of being a kid, and like, what were you interested in? What were you passionate about? And then really going, did anybody tell me I could really do that, or that I was good at it? Because God damn, even if you are awful, when you're 4, all you need is to be encouraged. At 36, all I need is still to be encouraged and reassured and told that, like, I can do something if I put my mind to it. And uh, Julia Cameron calls it our creative self-worth. And a lot of the times, if we did have negative voices or people who are critical of our creativity or our work, that really impacts us.
Yeah.
And so I think that we all are creative. We might have some hurt parts to hold and to take care of a bit. And I truly love The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I'm reading it and it's changing my life. And there's daily activities around creativity. For those of you that are listening, I would
Yeah,
point you.
I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
So good. And then on the note of how do we use this, I think art is what we feel inside of us in this very internal, deep place. And to create art is to take that and put it outside of us, whether it's a song or a painting or a poem. It's to have an intimacy with the world, to bring them into an expression of who you are. And so I would see it as a form of communication in a way. And I think that part of why it's important we create art is I think we also create belonging for ourselves. When we write a poem or a song, there's belonging. I have a book, in the world, and I belong inside of that. But we also create belonging for other people who may listen to the song that we wrote when we were in a heartbreak because we used to walk across the park with our boyfriend and 2 pottery mugs and go to the coffee shop, and now we walk across that park alone. And they get to feel belonging and they get to feel less alone. So I think that it's a form of communication and a form of intimacy. And I'm just like, why the fuck wouldn't you want to know yourself and show yourself to people? We only get one. This is not a dress rehearsal for life. This is it. And connection is intimacy. It's honesty. If you feel disconnected from somebody, you're not being honest with them. So poetry is honesty. We're going to practice honesty, and how you can take this into the world is you can practice being more honest in every part of your life, because if you want to feel connection, you have to be yourself. If you feel disconnection, how many fucking masks are you wearing? So poetry is a place to put down the defense mechanism. And I also want to be very gentle. Many of us are not being ourselves because we're afraid. And I do think this comes from like the lizard brain part of us, that when you lived in villages of 100 people, you would be sometimes if you were different, you could get ostracized, and you required the supportive village to survive, and you could be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So I really do think there's a very subliminal old lizard brain part of us that really associates being seen and visible as an opportunity to be ostracized, and ostracization as death. And what I'm going to tell you is that's not true. You could be rejected by every person that you know in your life and start over in 100 different places all over the world and be okay. We no longer live in that place. And I think that the risk of not being who we are has a lot more of a cost. I think that we need to be who we are. So I work with people also as a coach, and my work and the book I'm trying to fucking work on, my marriage book, is a program I have called Your Truth is Your Medicine, where that's where that line comes from. I don't know if I had that in my bio before AI took it, but I'm just like, if you're not feeling connected, have you tried being yourself? It's so radical, but there's only one you. And also, why would you want to short anyone the opportunity of knowing who you are? And I think it's ironic that authenticity or being real or honest is some radical thing, when I'm like, what is everybody else doing? Why are we, don't you want to feel like deep intimacy and connection in your marriage, even if what you have to say is hard?
Mhm. You know, a lot of us have, shame around things. A lot of us have, you mentioned the word abortion. A lot of a lot of people like in our audience they have shame about maybe like being in spiritual communities and going through spiritual brutality with gurus and things of that nature. What is it about writing that can help us overcome our shame, or at least deal with it? Overcome is too strong a word.
Because it's a place of radical honesty, and you don't have to share that honesty with anyone. It's just externalizing it outside of the environment of yourself is really important. And it's almost like, I don't know why I'm thinking of this. It's like when you have a plant and you need to change its soil every once in a while. It's like
Mhm.
keeping it healthy and being able to Yeah, I think it's really good. I go to therapy twice a month to be preventative, not because I'm broken or anything is wrong. I know I got lots of stuff to take out of my brain. So poetry is an opportunity. It's also, it doesn't cost anything. It's not $275 a session, to put what is inside of you onto paper. And um, and I went on a date once with a man who wrote poetry, but he had it locked in a safe, like a full-on safe, and no one had ever read it because so you can do whatever you want with it. You can put it in a safe, you could lock it up. Um, I think that half of the healing is just getting it out, and I think the other half is when you give other people the opportunity to find themselves in it.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I think, and I'm so sorry to anyone who's experienced power being misused in the spiritual community because I know all about that. But I think that like it's a way to be liberated. It's a way to kind of give yourself like give yourself a voice, and you also validate your experience. And so I think if it feels real to you, it is real. And writing something can also help us to like validate, like, this is how I feel. I honestly do not care that we have gone to the moon. I don't. I would much rather. There's gray whales right now. Gray whales or blue whales going, a lot of whales are dying because there's a certain type of fish that they eat that because of climate change is dying, and they are not evolving to eat anything new, so they're just dying. They're starving to death. And I care more about that than any planets and people going to planets or
Mm.
AI or any of it. I don't give a fuck about that. So we all get to care about the things that we care about. And writing and poetry is a place to put down what you care about. And there's no right
Mm.
or wrong. It's just like, I care about this. And it's therapeutic. You will feel, well, I don't know. I won't say you will feel better because I can never say that, but I think I always usually feel better.
Johnny, maybe you've answered this already, but if there's one thing that you would like people to get out of this sacred rawness event that we're going to be doing on, what is it? What is this? This is May 23rd. What would it be?
Um, just practicing honesty, feeling closer to themselves, trying something new.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Anything else you want to share, which we haven't talked about? We could talk, as you and I could talk for hours, but just for
um,
people that might want to come to this, or maybe there's people just interested in what your work.
yeah, well,
Anything you want to share?
yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm just so excited with what you've been creating with your life and giving your life to. And I'm so excited to come in to the Sacred Inclusion Network and share some of my gifts. And just for anybody listening, the moment I first saw Angelo, I was like, who is that guy? Who is that guy? I'm going to be friends. You were across the table from me. And I made a really big purpose at the end
Oh
of a
man, she
long
was
conference.
bold, man. Gosh. So who is this white woman coming to talk to me? Jesus.
Yeah, and I was like, I would like to know you. And so we exchanged info and had some conversations, and I loved your poem that you sent me too. What was the name you sent me? It was a reading you did.
It was about Pema Chodron. I don't remember what the name of it at the moment. I'm too embarrassed to think of it, you know.
No, it was good. It was real. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is one of my people. So yeah, I'm really excited to do this with you and to come in, and yeah, I just really appreciate what you've built, and it feels like a total honor to come in. And for anybody part of the network, I'm looking forward to meeting you and writing like we're on the moon, and meeting what's there.
Well, thank you so much, Janne Robinson. I'll put all the details in the show notes. Anything else you want to include in that will be there. And it's an honor to get to know you, and I hope to get to know you more, and I hope to introduce you to other people that will also have the honor of knowing you. I don't know what else to say other than that, but I'm glad we did this.
Me too. Thank you for having me.